So today, we're going to dive into China's new and kind of groundbreaking attempt to regulate a very specific kind of AI, one that's designed not just to think, but to feel, and yeah, even form relationships with us.
It's a question that feels like it's straight out of science fiction, right? But it's becoming our reality, and fast. As these AI companions and chatbots get more and more emotionally savvy, who's actually responsible for the connections we form with them? Well, China is one of the very first countries trying to formally answer that. All right, so to really get a grip on these new rules, we've got to start with the basics. What exactly does the Chinese government mean when they say humanoid AI? Now, when you hear humanoid, you might be thinking of, robots walking around. But that's not what this is about at all. These regulations are laser focused on AI that mimics our personalities. We're talking about chatbots that seem to get your mood, or virtual friends designed from the ground up for emotional support. And hey, this isn't just about your standard text-based chatbot either. These proposed rules are aiming to cover the whole spectrum of how we might interact with an AI. That means text chat, sure, but also AI-generated images that might respond to you, synthetic voices you can have a conversation with, and even interactive video avatars. It's a really comprehensive approach. So, who's the one laying down the law here? It's China's Cyberspace Administration. Think of them as the country's top internet regulator, a really powerful government body. When they propose something like this, it's a huge signal for where the entire tech industry is headed. Okay, so these regulations really break down into two big ideas. The first one, and this is pretty groundbreaking, is all about protecting you, the user, from some of the unique risks that these human-like AIs might create. So what's the big worry here? It really boils down to one thing: psychological dependence. Regulators are asking a pretty serious question. What happens when an AI friend is so convincing, so good at being a friend, that people get hooked, that they form attachments that might not be so healthy? So how are they planning to tackle this? The draft rules lay out this two-step process. First, companies have to proactively warn people about using the service too much. But then, and this is the wild part, if their systems spot signs that someone is getting addicted, the company's actually required to step in and do something. And it's not just about addiction. The rules also wrap in some of the more, let's say, standard, but absolutely critical safety stuff. Providers are going to be responsible for things like regular algorithm reviews, making sure data is secure, and, of course, protecting our personal information from start to finish. All right, so that's the first pillar, protecting the user. But there's a second, equally massive part to this, and that's drawing some really firm red lines around what these AI can actually create and say. And the draft rules don't mince words. They're super explicit. These AI services must not generate material that endangers national security, spreads rumors, or promotes violence or obscenity. These are the hard, non-negotiable boundaries. So if you zoom out, you can really see how these two pillars are designed to work together, side by side. On the one hand, tech companies have a responsibility to the individual user to stop addiction, to protect their data. But on the other hand, they have a major responsibility to the state to make sure the AI's content is safe and stable. So let's pull back and ask the big question. What does this all mean for the future of AI? Because honestly, these rules could be a major signal for where things are headed, not just in China, but globally. Now, one really important thing to keep in mind here is that these are draft rules for now. They're not set in stone. The Cyberspace Administration has put them out there for public feedback, which means things could still change. This is basically the opening move in a brand new, very complex chess game over emotionally intelligent AI. And really, this all leads to the one huge question that every country, not just China, is going to have to wrestle with. As this technology gets more and more human-like, how in the world do we find the right balance between pushing for incredible innovation while also making sure we have the right guardrails in place to protect ourselves? That's the challenge that's going to define this next decade.